Consistent traders are not more disciplined than you. They are not smarter, they are not braver, and they do not have access to information you do not have. They do 7 things every single day that you do not do. And the reason you are not doing them is not laziness. It is that no one has ever shown you what those 7 things are with enough specificity for you to actually start tomorrow morning. That changes right now. Mark Douglas spent decades working with traders who had every analytical advantage, good strategies, sound technical knowledge, access to capital, and still could not produce consistent results. The pattern he identified was always the same. The gap between the traders who survived and the traders who blew up was never intellectual. It was behavioral, it was habitual. The ones who made it had built a set of daily practices so deeply embedded that they operated automatically, even under emotional pressure. The ones who failed relied on motivation, memory, and mood, and those 3 things collapse the moment the market punishes you. If you are the kind of trader who tracks not just what you traded, but how you felt when you traded it, the beliefs, the emotional states, the moments of hesitation or impulsivity that shaped each decision, then you already understand that consistency lives in the data most traders never collect. If you are not tracking that yet, that is exactly the kind of structured self-observation that the Speculator's Journal was designed for. It lets you see the invisible patterns behind your results, the ones that no P&L statement will ever reveal. The link is in the description, but stay here first, because what I am about to lay out is the foundation everything else sits on. Let me show you what your current day looks like, because I do not think you see how unstructured it actually is. You wake up, you open your charts. Within minutes, something is moving, and you are reacting to it. Maybe you take a trade, maybe you hesitate and miss it. Either way, there was no preparation. No deliberate framing of what you would and would not do today. No explicit commitment to the behaviors that define your edge. Then a trade loses. Your jaw tightens. The next entry comes faster, with less thought, and usually with more size. You tell yourself you are adapting to the market. You are not adapting. You are compensating. You are trying to undo a loss through urgency. And urgency is the enemy of the clear-headed state you need to be in to trade well. By the end of the day, you look at one number, your net profit or loss, and that number dictates how you feel about yourself, your strategy, and your future. Green day, you are fine. Red day, you question everything. That is the extent of your review. One number. And that number tells you almost nothing about whether you followed your plan, what emotional state drove your decisions, or which beliefs hijacked your execution. I, Mark Douglas, have watched this pattern play out in hundreds of traders across every market, every account size, every experience level. The analytical skill varies. The strategies vary. The emotional damage is always the same. Because the absence of daily behavioral structure produces the same chaos, no matter how smart the trader is. How many of those patterns did you recognize in yourself? The morning without preparation. The revenge entry after a loss. The P and L only self-assessment. If you are honest, you recognize most of them. And that recognition is not a judgment of your character, it is the starting point of real change. Now let me reframe what consistency actually is. Because the model in your head is wrong, and it has been keeping you trapped. You have been told by courses, by mentors, by the entire trading internet, that consistency is a personality trait, that some people are naturally disciplined and others are not, that it comes from willpower, and willpower comes from wanting it enough. This is completely false, and it is the reason you have tried to become more disciplined dozens of times, and it has never lasted more than a week. Consistency is not a trait, it is an output. It is what gets produced when certain behavioral inputs are present every single day. Those inputs are habits, not dramatic habits, not heroic habits. Quiet, boring, repeatable habits that structure how you think before, during, and after each trading session. Remove the habits and consistency disappears, no matter how determined you feel this morning. Install the habits and consistency emerges, even on the days when you would rather do anything else. Mark Douglas built his entire teaching career around this insight that a trader's internal environment governs their results far more than the external environment of the market. You can study price action for a decade and still hemorrhage money if the habits and beliefs governing your moment-to-moment execution are misaligned with how probability actually works. The 7 habits I am about to give you are designed to create that alignment. They do not require talent, they require repetition. Let me give them to you now. Let me talk about the first habit, the pre-market intention. This is non-negotiable. Every morning, before you look at a single chart, before you open your platform, before you check what happened overnight, you write down your behavioral intention for the day. Not a financial goal, not, I want to make $500. A behavioral intention. Today, I will follow my entry rules on every trade. Today, I will take only setups from my watch list. Today, I will honor every stop without hesitation. Here is the psychology. When you start the day without an explicit behavioral intention, you default to an implicit financial one, make money. And when your unstated goal is make money, every decision you make throughout the day gets filtered through that lens. You take marginal setups because they might make money. You hold losers too long because closing them means not making money. You overtrade because more trades might mean more money. The financial goal corrupts every decision downstream. But when you start the day with a behavioral intention, the filter changes. Every decision gets filtered through, am I following my rules instead of am I making money? And the paradox, the beautiful counterintuitive paradox, is that the behavioral filter produces more money than the financial filter. Because following your rules is how the strategy generates its edge. You do not need to chase the money. You need to execute the process, and the money follows. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking this sounds like motivational fluff, like something from a self-help seminar, not a trading desk. But let me be extremely specific. You sit down at your desk, you open a notebook, you write today's date. Then you write today's intention. I will only enter trades from my pre-market watch list. I will risk no more than 1% per trade. I will not move a stop loss under any circumstance. I will step away for 10 minutes after any loss. 4 sentences, 30 seconds. And those 4 sentences become the operating system for your entire day, a reference point you can return to every time your emotions try to hijack your decision-making. Let me give you the worked example. It is 7:15 a.m. Your platform is still closed. You write today's intention. Follow the plan, honor the stops, take only A-grade setups. You read it back, then you open the charts. At 10:30, you are in a trade that is running against you. Your stop is 20 pips away, you want to move it. But you glance at your notebook, honor the stops, and you leave it alone. The stop gets hit, you lose. But you followed your intention. And that trade, the one where you honored the stop and accepted the loss, is worth more than any winner that came from breaking a rule. Because that trade built the habit, and habits compound, but the pre-market intention only sets the stage. What happens during the session is where the real work begins. Let me talk about the second habit, the risk declaration. This is non-negotiable. Before every single trade, you state out loud or in writing the exact dollar amount you are risking. Not the pip count, not the percentage of price movement, the actual money that will leave your account if the trade fails. This trade risks $240. I accept the potential loss of $240. Here is the psychology. Your brain processes abstract numbers differently from concrete ones. 20 pips is a concept. Your brain files it away as information. $240 is reality. Your brain processes it as money you earned, money that feeds your family, money that is about to be gone, and that concreteness forces you to do something essential, genuinely accept the risk or recognize that you cannot. If you say the number and your stomach tightens, your position is too large. If you say the number and you feel neutral, the risk is calibrated correctly. Your body tells you the truth that your mind hides behind calculations. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking you already know your risk because you use a position size calculator. But knowing the risk intellectually and declaring it out loud are two entirely different psychological acts. The declaration forces confrontation. The calculator allows avoidance. You can punch numbers into a spreadsheet without ever sitting with what those numbers mean. You cannot say, I am about to lose $300 without feeling something. And that feeling is the data you need. Let me give you the worked example. You see a setup on crude oil. Your stop is 50 cents away. At 100 barrels, that is $50 risk. You say out loud, this trade risks $50. $50 is acceptable. It feels fine. You enter. Next trade, same setup, but you are tempted to double your size because the last trade won. You calculate 50 cents, 200 barrels, $100. You say out loud, this trade risks $100. Your chest tightens. That tightness is the signal. You reduce back to 100 barrels. $50. Acceptable. The tightness dissolves. You enter clean. The risk declaration takes 30 seconds. And it calibrates your emotional state to the actual cost of the trade before you are inside it. Without this calibration, you are flying blind. Your body will tell you the risk is wrong only after the trade is live, and by then it is too late. But calibrating your risk is only part of the equation. Let me talk about the third habit, the one trade isolation. This is non-negotiable. Every trade you take exists in isolation from every trade that came before it. The outcome of your last trade has absolutely no bearing on the probability of your next trade. None. Zero. And you must actively remind yourself of this before every single entry. Here is the psychology. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. It is wired to connect events to see cause and effect even where none exists. After a winning trade, your brain concludes that the market is readable and the next trade will probably win. After a losing trade, your brain concludes that something is wrong and the next trade will probably lose. Both conclusions are false. The market does not know what happened on your last trade. The next qualifying setup has the same probability as every other instance of that setup in your backtesting data, regardless of what happened 5 minutes ago. But your brain does not accept this. After 3 wins, reducing back to standard size feels like leaving money on the table. After 3 losses, taking the next valid setup feels reckless. Both feelings are based on the gambler's fallacy, the belief that past outcomes influence future probabilities in a random distribution. They do not. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, but my strategy is not random. Previous outcomes tell me something about market conditions. And you are partially right if your plan has a market regime filter. Consecutive losses might signal a regime change. But that adjustment should be built into the plan in advance, not improvised in the moment based on how the last 3 trades felt. The one trade isolation habit is about your emotional response to outcomes, not your analytical response to market conditions. Those are different things, and most traders confuse them. Here is the practice. Before every entry, you say, this is trade number 1. It has no history. It has no relationship to the last trade. Its probability is the same as every other qualifying instance. I do not know what will happen, and I do not need to know. That statement, repeated before every entry, trains your brain to release its grip on recent results. Over weeks, the tendency to upsize after wins and downsize after losses, one of the most destructive behavioral patterns in trading, weakens. Not because you fought it, but because you replaced the story with a more accurate one. This habit resets the emotional slate, but what happens after the trade closes is just as important as what happens before. Let me talk about the fourth habit, the post-trade emotional log. This is non-negotiable. Within 60 seconds of a trade, closing win or loss, you record your emotional state. 1 to 3 words, written down immediately. Not at the end of the day, not from memory. Right now, while the feeling is still raw, here is the psychology. Emotions in trading are intense and fleeting. If you wait until your end-of-day review to recall how you felt during trade number 3, you will reconstruct a sanitized version of reality. You will remember feeling calm when you were actually anxious. You will remember patience when there was impulsivity. Your memory is not a recording device, it is a storytelling device, and it edits for self-protection. The only way to capture the truth is to log it in real time. Win, relief, wanted more, loss, frustration, urge to re-enter immediately, win, overconfident, consider doubling next position, loss. calm. Plan was followed. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking this is tedious, that stopping to write after every trade breaks your flow. But your uninterrupted flow is part of the problem. The continuous stream of trading, reaction after reaction, entry after entry, is exactly the mode that produces inconsistency. The post-trade emotional log breaks that stream deliberately. It inserts a moment of self-awareness between the last trade and the next one. That 60-second pause to observe your own state is often the only thing standing between a clean next trade and a revenge trade. Let me give you the worked example. You take a long on the euro, it runs 20 pips, hits your target, you close the trade and immediately write, win. Feeling good, slightly overconfident, tempted to find another entry right away. You read what you wrote. That last line, tempted to find another entry right away, is a red flag you would have missed without writing it down. It tells you the next trade, if you take one now, will be driven by momentum, not by your plan. You pause, you step away. When you come back, the urge has passed. Over months, these logs build into the most valuable data set you will ever own as a trader. Not a P and L statement, but an emotional record. Patterns emerge that are completely invisible in real time. You might discover you are most impulsive between 10 and 11 a.m. You might discover that after 2 consecutive wins, you almost always take an unplanned third trade. That kind of structured self-observation is exactly what Mark Douglas spent his career asking traders to practice, but he could only describe the principle. He never had a way to hand someone a finished system for it. That is the gap a tool like the Speculator's Journal fills. It takes your raw emotional logs and shows you the recurring patterns across weeks and months, laid out in front of you instead of buried in memory. The link is in the description. Take a look after this video. But even with pen and paper, the habit works. Log the emotion. Every trade, within 60 seconds. Now, tracking the emotional moment is critical, but it means nothing if you do not also evaluate the quality of the session as a whole. Let me talk about the 5th habit, the end-of-day process score. This is non-negotiable. At the close of every trading session, you review each trade and assign it a binary grade, not based on profit or loss, but on whether you followed your rules. Plan followed or plan broken. Then you calculate the percentage. That number is your process score. Here is the psychology. Most traders end the day by looking at one number, their net P and L. Green day, they feel competent. Red day, they feel like failures. And that single number shapes their self-assessment, their mood going into the next session, and their confidence. But P and L is a terrible measure of quality over any time frame shorter than a month. You can lose money doing everything right, that is variance. You can make money doing everything wrong, that is luck. And luck is a debt that comes due. Your process score tells you the truth that P and L hides. Did you actually do what you said you would do? If the answer is yes on 90% of trades and you still lost money, your strategy may need adjustment, but your execution is sound. If the answer is no on 40% of trades and you made money, you are living on borrowed time. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that a binary pass-fail for each trade is too harsh, that mostly following your rules should count. But partial adherence is exactly how you are trading right now, and you are not consistently profitable. The gap between mostly and completely is where your edge leaks. Every exception, every close enough, every I bent the rule but the reasoning was valid, those are cracks in the container, and over 50 trades, they drain the edge your strategy was designed to capture. Let me give you the worked example. Monday, you took 3 trades. Trade 1, entered from your watch list, standard size, stop at the right level, let it play out. Grade, followed the plan. Trade 2, entered a setup that was not on your watch list because it looked good. Grade, did not follow the plan. Trade 3, followed every rule, took the loss cleanly. Grade, followed the plan. Your process score for Monday is 67%. That is your truth, not the dollar amount. The process number, and your only goal every day and every week is to push that number above 90% and hold it there. 2 habits remain, and they go deeper than anything we have covered so far. Let me talk about the 6th habit, the weekly belief inventory. This is non-negotiable. Once a week, the same day each week. Ideally, when markets are closed, you sit down for 15 minutes and review every trade from the past 5 sessions where your process score was a no. For each of those trades, you ask one question. What did I believe in that moment that made breaking my rule feel like the right thing to do? Here is the psychology. Every broken rule is driven by a belief. You do not break rules randomly. You break them because, in the moment, something inside you believed that breaking the rule was better than following it. I believed the move was going to happen with or without me, and I could not afford to miss it. I believed this trade was a special case that justified more risk. I believed the stop was about to get hit and the market would reverse, so I moved it to give it room. These beliefs operate below conscious awareness. They feel like decisions. They are not decisions, they are reflexes, automatic programs running in the background, overriding your plan before your rational mind can intervene. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking this sounds like therapy, not trading. In a sense, it is. It is therapy for the part of your mind that sabotages your execution. The difference is you do not need a therapist. You need a notebook, 15 minutes of honesty, and the willingness to look at what you find. Let me give you the worked example. Saturday morning, you open your journal from the week. 4 trades broke your rules. Monday, trade 2. Entered a setup not on your watch list. Belief. The move was obvious. Everyone could see it. I needed to be in. Wednesday, trade 3. Doubled position size. Belief. I was down on the week, and this setup was strong enough to recover the loss. Thursday, trade 1. Moved stop loss. Belief. I was right about direction. The market just needed more room. Friday, trade 4. Skipped a valid setup. Belief. After 3 losses in a row, the next trade was probably going to lose too. You look at these 4 beliefs, and you notice something. 3 of them share a common root, the belief that you can predict what the market will do next, that your feeling about direction is more reliable than your rules. That belief is the source code of your inconsistency. And now that you can name it, now that you have seen it written down across multiple trades, it starts to lose its power. Not because you argued with it, because you recognized it. In the moment, before you act, you catch the belief operating and you say, I know this one. This is the belief that tells me I know what the market will do. I have seen it 4 times this week. I do not follow this belief. I follow my rules. That is the belief inventory. 15 minutes a week that surface the invisible programs running your worst decisions. But there is one more layer, the deepest habit, the one that holds all the others in place. Let me talk about the 7th habit, the identity statement. This is non-negotiable. Every morning, as part of your pre-market ritual, you write or speak a single sentence that defines who you are as a trader. Not who you want to become, who you are. Present tense. I am a trader who follows my rules on every trade. I am a trader who accepts losses without emotional attachment. I am a trader who thinks in probabilities and acts from a plan. Here is the psychology. Your behavior is ultimately governed by your identity, by who you believe yourself to be at the deepest level. If you believe you are a disciplined trader, you act like one. If you believe you are someone who tries to be disciplined but sometimes struggles, you act like that instead. The identity statement is not affirmation in the superficial sense. It is a deliberate act of defining the standard you hold yourself to before the market tests it. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking this is the softest habit on the list, that speaking a sentence to yourself in the morning cannot change your trading. But consider this, you already have an identity statement. It runs in the background of your mind right now. It sounds something like, I am someone who knows what to do but cannot seem to do it. Or, I am someone who always gets in my own way. Or, I am someone who is not quite there yet. Those narratives formed passively through accumulated losses and frustrations, and they are shaping every decision you make. You did not choose them. The identity statement habit replaces that passive formation with an active declaration. The key is specificity. Not, I am a great trader. Your brain will reject that immediately. Instead, I am a trader who does not move stops. Your brain can evaluate that. It is concrete, behavioral, and falsifiable. And when you repeat it every morning for 2 months, something shifts. The statement stops being aspirational and starts being descriptive. You begin to act like the person you declared, not because you forced yourself, but because the identity crystallized through repetition. Let me give you the worked example. It is 7 a.m. You open your notebook, you write, "I am a trader who follows the plan on every trade and accepts every outcome as the cost of doing business." You read it out loud, you close the notebook, you open the charts. At 11:15, a temptation arises, a setup that is close to your criteria but does not fully qualify. Your old self would have taken it, but there is a voice now, quiet and steady. That is not who I am. Not because you summoned willpower in that moment, because you installed the voice that morning and the morning before and the morning before that. Now, let me bring all of this together. 7 habits. I will list them one final time so they are anchored in your mind. 1, the pre-market intention. Every morning, before charts open, write your behavioral goal for the day. 2, the risk declaration. Before every trade, state the dollar amount at risk, out loud or in writing. 3, the one trade isolation. Before every entry, remind yourself that this trade has no connection to the last one. 4, the post-trade emotional log. Within 60 seconds of every close, record your emotional state in 1 to 3 words. 5, the end-of-day process score. At the end of every session, grade each trade on rule adherence and calculate the percentage. 6, the weekly belief inventory. Once a week, review every broken rule and identify the belief that drove it. 7, the identity statement. Every morning, define who you are as a trader in one present tense sentence. Do these 7 things every day for 6 months. Not when you feel motivated, not on the good days only, every single day. And here is what will happen. Your process score will climb. Your emotional logs will shift from frustrated, anxious, impulsive to calm, neutral, clear. Your belief inventories will get shorter as the same sabotaging beliefs lose their ability to operate unseen. Your identity statement will stop feeling aspirational and start feeling like a fact. And your P and L, which you stopped obsessing over somewhere around month 2, will trend in a direction it has never consistently trended before. Not because you found a new strategy, not because the market got easier, because you built a set of daily habits that keep your mind operating in the one state where your edge can express itself, a state of clarity, neutrality, and process focus. That is what consistency is. It is not a trait you were born with. It is a structure you build, brick by brick, habit by habit, day by day. Mark Douglas dedicated his career to showing traders that the distance between where they are and where they want to be is not measured in knowledge. It is measured in daily practice. These 7 habits are that practice. They are not glamorous. They will not make you feel like a genius. They will make you feel like someone who shows up, does the work, and lets the math play out over time. And that boring, quiet, relentless consistency is what mastery actually looks like from the inside. If you want to build these habits inside a system that tracks your emotional patterns, highlights your recurring beliefs, and shows your process score over time, something that turns the work Mark Douglas asked traders to do manually into something you can actually see and measure. Take a look at the Speculator's Journal. The link is in the description. But whether you use a tool or a blank notebook, the message is the same. Stop searching for a better strategy. Start building better habits. 7 is enough. They were always enough. You just have to do them